Good morning, all of you. Welcome to ODL class. Today's class is demand forecasting. This is coming under Block 2, Unit 7. In this class, we are going to discuss about the definition of demand forecasting. What are the different types of demand forecasting? Objectives of demand forecasting. What are the steps involved in demand forecasting process? Then methods of demand forecasting and how to forecast demand for a new product. Finally, we complete with a case study. The objective of this particular topic is to analyze various methods of demand forecasting and try to predict the demand for a new product. Let us get into the class. Demand forecasting is a process of predicting the future sales of the product based on past data and information for the purpose of making an effective decision in a management. Right from the planning stage till the delivery of finished goods, the ultimate management objective relies on value of future sales, but the future is uncertain as well as with a high risk. Amidst the situation of every manager has to take a decision. The demand forecasting is a right tool for estimating the future sales or demand for a commodity or services. Let us start with the definition. Different authors have defined the term demand forecasting in different ways, but the following two definitions are used more in practice. First definition given by Evan J. Douglas. According to Evan J. Douglas, demand estimation, that is forecasting, may be defined as a process of finding the values for demand in the future time period. It's a very simple definition. The second definition given by Cundiff and Still. These two authors have given the definition in the following manner. Demand forecasting is an estimate of sale during a specific future period based on proposed marketing plan and a set of particular uncontrollable and competitive forces. Compared to previous definition, this particular definition is having better scope because it includes marketing plan and it insists about the estimation that to a specific future period. That too, it considers both uncontrollable and competitive forces. So keeping these two definitions in mind, let's move to the types of demand forecasting. There are various types of demand forecasting depending upon the factors considered, such as time perspective, level of business, level of action, and the purpose. We can classify it into different types of demand forecasting. The following flow chart helpful to understand the different types of forecasting. You can see the flow chart. It is divided into four. The first one is time perspective. Based on the time perspective, the demand forecasting can be divided into two categories. One is short-term demand forecasting. The second one is long-term demand forecasting. The second one, we are classifying the demand forecasting based on the business level. It may be macro level, that is national level, or it may be an industry level demand forecasting or firm level demand forecasting. So based on the level of business, we are able to classify the demand forecasting into these three categories. Based on the type of action, there are two different types of demand forecasting. One is passive action, second one is active action. Finally, based on the purpose, we can classify the demand forecasting into two. One is general demand forecasting, another one is specific demand forecasting. Let us start with the time perspective. The demand forecasting is divided into two categories based on the time perspective, namely short-term demand forecasting and long-term demand forecasting. The short-term demand forecasting is limited to a maximum of 1 year for the forecasting related to sales, purchase, pricing, and finance, etc. It is useful for immediate action for a business situation. On the other hand, long-term demand forecasting meant for long-term span, which involve expansion of production units or administration of multi-product or increasing the production capacity. For all these things, we are using long-term demand forecasting. The policy decisions are categorized under long-term demand forecasting, such as manpower planning, technological transfer, all these things. Coming to second category of classification, the business level. Based on the level of business, the demand forecasting is classified into three categories, namely macro level demand forecasting, industrial level demand forecasting, and firm level demand forecasting. This classification was introduced by Professor Christopher and other economists in order to explain the sale forecast for different levels. The macro level forecasting is done for the national level or economy level, such as national income or expenditure or national policies, etc. The industry level demand forecasting is done by trade association or chambers of commerce in order to analyze the consumption pattern and statistical trend of the sales. In case of firm level demand forecasting, the forecasting is conducted in micro level in order to improve the quality of decision in the management level. Coming to the third category, based on the type of action, we can classify the demand forecasting into two types. One is passive, another one is active. The passive demand forecasting envisages the future situation for the purpose of knowing the changes in the business. On the other hand, the active demand forecasting predicts the future situation and giving due consideration for future course of action. The last category, based on the purpose. On the purpose of demand forecasting, it is classified into two kinds, namely general demand forecasting and specific demand forecasting. General demand forecasting is conducted on routine basis, but specific demand forecasting meant for specific reason or action conducted in different product in a specific area. Apart from these types, there are many other demand forecasting are available based on the type of the product, whether it is existing or new product, or capital product, or consumer durables, or service product. So apart from these 11 type of demand forecasting, there are many other demand forecasting are there. In your question paper, most of the time in section B, they used to ask what are the objectives of the demand forecasting. So while writing the answer, you have to say what are the list of short-term objective and long-term objective. The purpose of demand forecasting is to achieve the management objective, which are broadly classified into two categories, namely short-term objectives and long-term objective. See the flow chart. It is very helpful to understand the objective of demand forecasting. In short-term demand forecasting, we are classifying 4 different categories. In order to formulate the production policy, we are using short-term demand forecasting. Suppose if we want to frame pricing policy, we need short-term demand forecasting. The short-term demand forecasting also facilitate the framing of purchase and sales policy or arranging for working capital. These are all the things coming under short-term objective of a demand forecasting. For this, we have to use short-term demand forecasting. On the other hand, there are certain long-term objectives are also there for their demand forecasting. When you want to expand the production capacity, or we are planning for the manpower, or anything related to policy, management policy, or planning for long-term activities, for all these things, we need long-term demand forecasting. So these may be the objectives. While comparing the objective of short-term and long-term, it is better to see the difference between short-term demand and long-term demand. Based on that, it is easy to remember the short-term objective and long-term objective. The differences are, it's very easy. The nature of short-term demand forecasting is, it is ad hoc decision. It's a 11th hour decision that we are taking. In order to formulate the production function, we are using the short-term demand forecasting. In case of purchase or sales preparing the budget, we need a short-term demand forecasting. Of course, the pricing policy and strategy rely on the short-term demand forecasting only. And determining the financial requirement, that is working capital, for all these things, we need short-term demand forecasting. But on the other hand, instead of ad hoc decision, if you want to make a major strategic decision, instead of short-term demand forecasting, we have to use the long-term demand forecasting. And suppose when you want to start a new unit, then short-term demand forecasting will not be used, only long-term demand forecasting. Likewise, expansion of existing unit or planning for a long-term activity or manpower planning, for all these things, long-term demand forecasting will be used. Suppose if they ask distinguish between long-term and short-term demand forecasting, first write short-term objectives and long-term objective, and then you write this particular table, then you can secure full marks. Both short-term and long-term demand forecasting used to make an effective decision in a business. So either it is a short-term or long-term, the following steps should be followed. The demand forecasting is a systematic process to estimate the demand for the future period, but it should be scientific, for which the process of demand forecasting involves 5 major steps. So these 5 steps should be followed while conducting the demand forecasting. The first step is to identify and specify the objective. The objective of demand forecasting should be identified with the business requirement, and it should be clearly specified in a suitable type of demand forecasting. The specification includes whether it's a short-term or long-term, whether it is a macro level or industry level or firm level, or it is a general or specific. So this is the first step that we should do while conducting the demand forecasting. The second step, we have to finalize the time, that is determining the time perspective. Based on the objective of demand forecasting and its specification, based on the step 1, the next step is to be finalized, that is the time perspective. If it is a short-term demand forecasting, some determinants are assumed to remains constant and do not change significantly. On the other hand, if it is a long-term demand forecasting, all the determinants are variable and due consideration given to all of them. Then the third step, we have to select the right method of demand forecasting. After specification of objective and its time period, it is a duty of the manager to select a method to be used to conduct the demand forecasting. There are 2 broad categories of methods of demand forecasting. One is called survey method. Another one is called statistical method. A relevant method of demand forecasting will be selected on the basis of the purpose of the demand forecasting, type of data required or availability of data, cost estimation, and time frame. So these are all the factors which influence the selection of method of demand forecasting. After finalizing the methods of demand forecasting, then the next step is to collect the data and what type of data is required that should be interpreted. Once the method of demand forecasting is finalized, the next step is to collect the data. Based on the demand forecasting criteria, the type of data are to be finalized. The availability of data is a major factor which decides the data requirement. It includes either primary data or secondary data or both. Data consistency, data manipulation, and data adjustment are also taken into account while carrying out this data collection. The last step is to estimate and interpret the result. The final step of the demand forecasting process is to estimate the demand with the help of the collected data and data adjustments. The estimation may be in the form of equation or statement or a report, and it should be scientific and easy to understand, and it should be in a usable form. Thus, the objective of demand forecasting can be achieved only if these 5 steps are followed systematically and scientifically. Now, let us move to the methods of demand forecasting. The responsibility of manager starts from knowing the demand from the company product and continued with the requirement of raw material for the production and aligning the finished product in the warehouse. The most critical problem of manager is to choose the right method of demand forecasting, which is decided by considering many factors like objectives of forecasting and the most critical problem of manager is to choose the right type of method and demand for forecasting, which is decided considered by many factors like objective of forecasting, what is the time factor that decides, and what is the nature of information required, the nature of available information, and what is the cost effect, and how to estimate the cost, and completing the process with all 5 steps. The following flow chart helpful to understand different methods of demand forecasting. As I already told you, the methods of demand forecasting is divided into 2 categories. One is survey method, another one is statistical method. In survey method, it is further divided into 2 categories. One is consumer survey method, another one is opinion poll method. In consumer survey method, there are 4 different methods called complete enumeration method, sample survey method, test marketing method, and end use method. On the other hand, in the opinion poll method, there are 2 different methods called sales for opinion method and expert opinion method. So totally 6 methods are available in the survey method. I will repeat again. The survey method is divided into two. One is consumer survey method and opinion poll method. Consumer survey method consists of 4 different methods: complete enumeration, sample survey, test marketing, and end use method. In opinion poll, another 2: Salesforce opinion method and expert opinion method. This is in case of survey method. Under statistical method, it is divided into 3 categories. One is trend projection method. The second one is barometric method, and finally the regression method. Under trend projection method, there are 6 different methods are there: graphic method, least square method, time series method, moving average method, exponential method, and ARIMA method. This is in case of trend projection method. Coming to barometric method, there are 3 different available data is categorized into 3 different categories. One is leading indicators, coincident indicators, and lagging indicators. Based on that, the demand will be forecasted. And finally, in the regression method, 3 different methods: linear regression method, non-linear regression method, and multiple regression method. Therefore, totally in survey method, there are 6 methods. In statistical method, there will be 12 methods. Even in the least square, we are having 3 different methods: straight line method, parabolic method, and logarithmic method. In your question paper, they may ask some case study related with that particular thing. Most probably, they will ask in a least square method only. Let us discuss one particular case study in the end of the class. Before that, how to forecast the demand for a new product is more important, because the statistical method and survey method is meant for the existing product. But for a new product, the past data will not be there. So we need some strategy or new approaches to find out what will be the demand for the new product. The demand for a new product requires a special skill and techniques, as they are new and no previous data is available about the sales. This method or technique should be carefully tailored for the product. Professor Joel Dean has given 6 possible approaches towards the forecasting a new product. The 6 approaches are: number 1, the evolutionary approach. The principle behind this approach is that the demand for a new product is only on the outgrowth of the evolution or the existing product. It means that the demand condition for existing product should be taken into account while assessing the demand for a new product. The second method is called substitution method. This substitution method can be applied when a new product is analyzed with any other substitute which is existing in the market. It is old existing product or service is used in order to compare what will be the sale of a new product. The third method is called growth curve method. In this particular approach, the estimate of rate of growth of an ultimate level of demand for a new product will be established on the basis of some growth pattern which is already established in the product. For example, the average sale of talcum powder will be given an idea about how the new cosmetic will be received in the market. So some past growth curve of an existing product can be used as a model for a new product in order to find out the demand for that particular new product. The fourth method is called opinion poll approach. Under this, the demand for new product will be estimated by making a direct inquiries from the ultimate consumer. This can be done by sample survey method, but it is very complicated process, as there will be a problem in sampling. People will not give a real feedback about the product, but it is a best method. It is complicated to implement. Once it is implemented with a systematic manner, this will be the best method out of 6 approaches. Then sales experience approach. According to sales experience approach method, sample of a new product will be offered to the sample market for forecasting the demand. This is done through distributive channel like departmental stores, cooperative society, etc., by direct mailing. Total demand is predicted on the basis of sample market, but difficult lies determining the elements to make the some immaturity in the sample market and full-fledged market cannot be covered. Suppose the regional area, the geographical area is very large, the sales experience approach will not hold good. The last one is called vigorous approach. Though the vigorous approach method is useful, the reaction of the customer towards a new product will be found out indirectly through specialized dealer who are able to judge the need and taste and preference of the customer. The dealer being a link for the producer and the ultimate consumer. With the help of the dealer, we come to know what will be the demand for the product from the consumer side. All the above method of forecasting demand a new product is not mutually exclusive. According to Joel Dean, a combination of many of them often desirable when they can supply each other. When a new product is only the improvement of an old product, the evolution of your approach will become useful for the demand forecasting. The growth curve approach has only limited application. The vigorous approach appears very simple but very difficult to implement in the market because it is a new product. We are depending on intermediaries. Finally, let's move to a case study. This is a past year question. I've just solved out this. The following table shows the sales of last 5 years. 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, they have given. It is in thousands. What they ask is construct the demand forecasting report using methods of least squares. And the second question is find the projected value of sales for the year 2022. So what we have to do, we have to use a simple regression equation. Under normal equation, summation y equal to na plus b into summation x, and summation xy equal to a into summation x plus b into summation x square. This is the normal equation under regression method. First column is year, the second column is sales, the third column is the time period you may take as summation x, and the fourth column is x square, and last one is sale into year, that is xy. The given data is plotted in that particular schedule. You can see in the second column, the total sales value of 5 years is 2,60,000, and time period is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For 2014 is considered as a base year 1, 15 is 2, 16 is 3. Likewise, it is increasing in ascending order. Then square this and put it in the fourth column. So 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9. Likewise, you have to increase. And the last column is x into y. That is column 2 into column 3 is equal to column 5. 45 into 1 is 45. 52 into 2 is 104. 48 into 3 is 144. 55 into 4 is 220. And 60 into 5 is 300. If you total it, summation of xy equal to 813. So using these values, that is summation y equal to 260, summation x equal to 15, summation x square equal to 55, you can use these values and put it in that particular normal distribution equation. 260 equal to 5a plus 15b. Likewise, 813 equal to 15a plus 55b. Solving this by simultaneous equation, either b or a will be substituted each other. Then if you solve this particular equation, we can get the value of A as 42.1 and B as 3.3. And for any year, here we are asking for 2020. So we have to put as 7. When you apply that value, we can get 65.2. That is 65,200 will be the sales. It is projected. Suppose it is they are asking 2022 means you have to put that value as a 9th year. So 3.3 into 9 you have to say. With this, I'm completing the class. Let me summarize. What we discussed in this class is we have given the definition of demand forecasting. What are the types of demand forecasting? What are the methods of demand forecasting? How to forecast demand for a new product? And we solved one case study. And oftenly asking question is they ask about different elasticity. Based on the elasticity, how demand is changing and how to forecast the demand. The section C question possible is explain various methods of demand forecasting, and in section B, what are the steps involved in the demand forecasting. With this, I am completing the class. If you have any doubt, kindly contact me. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you.